guys, how's everyone doing? So today we're going to be going over blending exposures in Photoshop. So in this album you can see all of the photos that we're going to be blending. There's one in Oregon, there's one in Arches National Park, Monument Valley, Horseshoe Bend, Jasper National Park, and a cenote in Mexico. So all of these I'm going to be blending the exposures together. As you can see, some of these photos have lighter exposures, some of them have darker exposures. So most of that is just making sure that I can have the best dynamic range possible. So there's a lot of ways you can do this. They're all in Photoshop, and I'm going to kind of start with the easiest and then get a little bit more advanced each one we go, and every case scenario is different. So if you have one photo and you blend it a certain way, another photo might be completely different. But what I'm going to show you is 6 different ways that I do it. Some of them overlap, but for the most part, like this, everything in this tutorial will show you how to blend pretty much any exposure. And if there's anything you think I don't answer properly or you need help with and you have a tough one to blend of your own photo, shoot me an email and I will be happy to help. So first one we're going to start with is this photo of Mike. So I have my camera on a tripod in this cenote, and all of them were long exposures. It was very dark cenote, but I really wanted to highlight some of these details and some of these really cool rock formations. So you can see in my histogram that it was a 3.2 second exposure. So my buddy Mike with the unicorn head had to stand relatively still the entire time. So I had him stand in about 5 different places, and we're going to blend them all together to make one really funny photo. So here's the first one. The second one, he's over here. Danny was climbing up here, so we'll ignore that. Third one, he's over here. Danny again, we'll ignore that. Here he is hanging. Here he is chilling. And here he is making it to the top. So that's all of them. And what we're going to do in Lightroom, you could throw a base edit on if you want. So to show you that, go to the first photo. Let's just say I want a basic correction preset that I've made. And then we're going to do shift click. So all of our items are highlighted. Then we're going to go sync to sync that basic correction we did to all of the photos. And now they're all going to have this little just basic edit I have on them. And then we're going to do control click, edit in, and we're going to do open as layers in Photoshop. So this is going to take a second, but it'll load all of your photos as layers. It'll be... Alright, so now that all of those are loaded, the first step in any blended exposure is with all of your layers, click one, and then hold shift, click the bottom, so all of your layers are highlighted. And then we're going to go up to edit, auto align layers. Auto is fine, just click OK. And when you're blending exposures and aligning your layers, I was using a tripod, so all of these images are almost perfectly aligned, but you never know. Sometimes you hit your tripod and sometimes they off align just slightly, so I always recommend doing this step before anything, because then you might end up with doubles, and that's a huge pain to fix after you've already started editing. So this will just take a second, and what it's doing is it's moving the orientation of all the photos, and in some cases, probably not on this one though, it's warping the photo so they all align perfectly. And you can see now around the edges there's a little bit of emptiness, and that is just because we were off just slightly. So that is the alignment doing what it's supposed to. So I'm going to come over here to the cursor and I'm going to unhighlight my layers. I'm going to make them all not visible except for the bottom layer. So we're going to start with this layer, and he's up here. And the second layer, he is sitting right there. So what I'm going to do to blend all of these is I'm going to add a layer mask. I'm going to invert it so I can see the layer below it. And then on this layer, I remember he was right here, so I'm going to take a white brush at 100% opacity and pretty roughly just brush over, and there he is. And now we have 2 mics. So I'm going to just repeat this process for all of the photos. So I'm going to add the third layer, and he's down here. So add a layer mask, invert it so I can see my others and I don't overlap. And then on a white brush, brush him right in. And I'm just going to do this for all of the layers. It's the same process for each, but it's a really cool trick, and you can kind of do this for anything. Adjusting my brush size by the bracket keys, and here we go. So now we have 6 mics, no Danny's because we didn't have to worry about brushing Danny in, and it's definitely weird, but you can use this technique for anything, and it's super applicable. So I'm going to come back to my cursor, and to merge kind of all of these layers, I'm going to do Command-Option-Shift-E. That makes a merge visible layer. So this layer is essentially showing you everything that is below it. And it's kind of like a fresh layer to start on. And now for this layer, what I'm going to do to get rid of all these crop lines is, rather than cropping in and changing my orientation, I am just going to do Command-T, which is free transform, and just push this up so we don't have any weird emptiness in our photo, and it also keeps the same orientation. Click enter, and that is our first photo.